Greetings all, and welcome to the 6th episode of the V.T.P, or the Veteran Trainer's Perspective. Today, we are going to take a look at something that has been talked about for a very long time amongst the Pokemon fan community, and is something that I have had to think long and hard about for a while. Today, we are going to be taking a slightly controversial look at the idea of making a Pokemon MMO game, and from my position, why I think that it is unlikely that we will ever see an official Pokemon MMO game from Game Freak and Nintendo. The first thing to make clear, before I even get into the reasons why I am skeptical of the idea, is what exactly an MMO is for those that are not familiar with the term. MMO stands for Massively Multiplayer Online, and involves a large gaming landscape where many people from across the world come and play in a game together, forming organizations, creating economies, going on huge adventures, and so on and so forth. This is typically done on the scale where hundreds, if not thousands or more players are together on a single server, and are able to freely interact with each other as they please. A lot of MMOs have very open gameplay styles and functions, with many different roles to fulfill, so people are able to not only experience the game they are part of on their own, but also on a larger scale with others with their own unique purpose. In fact, it is pretty much mandatory for this latter role to be taken in order to make the most of the gaming experience. Players can play together or against each other in competition, form communities. In essence, they can make an entirely new world for themselves and those they are playing with, and practically live an entirely new life with their new companions and friends. This creates an enriching gaming experience that forces people to move outside the comfort of the basic single-player experience and become a part of something larger. And the sheer popularity of these sorts of games, including mega giants like World of Warcraft, serves to highlight just how effective they can be at making what they are trying to create for players. Now, don't get me wrong, I have no issues with the existence of MMOs, and although I have never really played one before, I understand their importance and the impact they have had on the gaming landscape, and respect them all for it, whether they are very small or very large. However, that is not the question I am here to discuss today. I am here to talk about why I believe that, as great as MMOs are, I don't feel that Pokemon is really suited for that sort of gaming genre, and I can break things down into 9 major points that I would like to tackle. So, here we go. First of all, we need to get to the very root of what makes Pokemon games what they are, and the most basic attribute that can be discussed is their actual gaming structure. Namely, the fact that they are single-player games. Now, let me just say here that there are several components as to why this is crucial for the experience of Pokemon as a whole, but again, at the most basic level, these games are built primarily for the experience of a single player, for them to go through the games on their own and make a name for themselves in doing so. The point I want to hit upon here is the most crucial of all, and that is that the games are made for the player's journey. And when I say that, I mean your journey. In the games, while the protagonist might have different gender and looks depending upon your preferences, in reality, there is only a basic look to them that is universal among many players. This is done on purpose, as the player character is designed for you to be able to project yourself onto. Sure, they might look like someone else, but it's your chance to put yourself into that iteration of the character and make them your own. The use of a generic character is great, as it not only provides actual protagonist mascots for each of the games released, making them easier to market, but at the same time, still allows for players to have their shot in the spotlight. If we look into MMOs, on the other hand, there is often a great deal of customization that goes along with character creation. While recent games in the Pokemon franchise have experimented with this as well, the basic character models are still the same. As such, they can be marketed readily, while those in MMOs, because of the greater degree of choice in making one's character, cannot be used as such. Ironically, yes, in this case, having a greater degree of control over the way one's character looks and is built actually does detract a little bit from the experience. Maybe not completely on the player's end, but definitely on the marketing end of the game, giving Game Freak an incentive to continue making the characters generic at some level in order to make it easier to promote the games. From this, there is then something to be said about the way that a player actually experiences the journey and what it is they are meant to do. In MMOs, there are often many different classes or categories of player of some sort that help to determine what you can and cannot do, but for the most part, there is free reign as to what you want to do with your time in the game. This is great for those that are looking to make the adventure whatever they wish it to be, but at the same time, This lack of direction can sometimes make it hard for players to really experience the full game, if there are so many different choices that can be made. This is not a negative thing per se, but it does mean that some aspects of the game might be things that some players never get to fully experience. By comparison, the Pokémon games are designed with a single major goal in mind, with steps that must be taken to get to that goal in a fairly discrete order most of the time. While there might be some choice involved as to where to go or explore next, for the most part, the games are made to have linear stories that direct players towards a specific end goal, in many cases that being becoming champion or some other important figure in the story. And in doing so, the games make it so the player can experience the main story and everything it has to offer, and even the side material or post-game content, without limiting them too much on what they can and cannot do, based on the choices they make in the games. This means that players are meant to be able to see the entirety of the game and explore it to the heart's content, with nothing being kept out of their range of choices. Heck, in many cases, even the side missions or gameplay material you are given a taste of within the games as part of the story's natural flow, so you are automatically given an introduction to it all while just playing in the game normally. This ensures that every player can get an equal taste of what every game has to offer and can try their luck at it all, definitely getting their full money's worth and the ability to explore every nook and cranny within the games as they wish. This has been the way the games have been designed since the very beginning, and given how fundamental of an aspect that it is to the series, its continued success likely means that it won't change for some time, if at all. Continuing on our look at the single-player experience, we can then go to another key aspect of most of the games, the main series titles especially: the rival. While the concept of a jerk rival in the Pokémon games is long gone, the existence of a rival in general in each of the main series games is designed to act as a push for players to grow and develop themselves to make them better players. With the gym leaders or whatever challenging opponents that must be faced in the game, there is a sense of progression with every victory, but these people are not in the games just for you. They have a job to do, and so beating them is merely a sign of you being able to prove yourself to be a good trainer so you can move on. However, the rivals provide a unique incentive in that they are not some official that you have to beat to keep going. They are someone you often know personally, and because of that, fighting them is a test of skill in competition that allows you to gauge your progress based on someone that you do know. This makes the fights more meaningful, as they are affecting the player on a personal level, calling them out to show their primary competition that they're just as good as them, if not better. This kind of encouragement helps to both make the experience more personal and adds progress checks to the game at the same time, helping to immerse players in their journey and make the urge to progress and get stronger that much more passionate. With MMOs, well, you might be able to find a real-world rival in the games of sorts to get the same experience. It's just not guaranteed that you will, and so that useful piece of encouragement and skill testing is not present, and thus detracts from the player's ability to gauge their progress and personal success along their journey. Next, in looking at the story, we should consider the existence of villainous organizations. Every single main series game, and most of the spin-offs, has an enemy or villain that is almost always integral to the progression of the game's stories, someone that must be bested and defeated in order to bring peace to the region you are playing in and to stop their nefarious deeds. This is pretty much one of the most classic staples in any video game, having an enemy that you must defeat in order to beat the game or otherwise accomplish some sort of incredible feat. And every time, it is made so that no matter what character you are playing as in the game, the story is designed to make you the hero. Not someone else, but you. It's your adventure, and thus it is your duty to best these villains and make the region you are in a better place. This helps to make you, the protagonist, feel like the true hero of the day, something to hold your head up high over, and something to make you feel like you really can do anything, to be more than any other trainer out there. This is a huge confidence boost to anyone playing the games, as it shows that even a single player can make a difference in the world. With MMOs, on the other hand, this is not always an option. After all, the entire point of these games is for players to come together to defeat great challenges and defeat mighty opponents. But in taking this approach, it takes away from the individual accomplishment that you as a player has, knowing that it was not just you that defeated a great evil in the land. As a result, the euphoria and sense of pride is diluted, and can thus detract from the experience compared to how the main series Pokemon games currently operate. Moving on from this, there is next to consider the most important end goal for any main series Pokemon game: becoming the champion. Now, I have issues with the Pokémon MMO in this category for two major reasons. First of all, there is the experience to once again consider. You have fought your way through many different challenges as you have gone on in your journey, and have bested many foes, only to find yourself at the doorstep of the champion of the region, and then it happens. You defeat them and grab the title for yourself. This was your hard work that has paid off. Your effort, your time and energy. All of it was you, and that makes it all the more worthwhile when you finally get a chance to show the world that you are indeed among the best of the best. However, in an MMO, these kinds of challenges are not the same, because it often takes more than just your character to reach similar types of goals. You need the help of others, and while the victory might be sweet, it is not as much because you weren't able to do it on your own. Now, obviously, that is fine for some people, so this issue is a bit subjective. However, Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon introduced a twist to the formula that brings up the other issue that I have: keeping that title. In these games, once you become the champion, instead of going through the Elite Four again to fight the same former champion over and over again, each time you do so in these games, you actually fight someone that is challenging you for the title. You are quite literally defending your title. In MMOs, this sort of thing isn't unheard of either, but it presents a problem in that most that aim for the goal of becoming the best of the best may never get that chance, as they simply might be facing an opponent that is too strong for them to face. This can be a major issue in the case of new players, as the opponent they are facing might have a lot of experience and better equipment or of the like than you do, and even if you do make progress, they might as well. So there is forever a gap between those just starting out and those that have been in the game the longest. This can detract from the overall experience once again, as it means that many might never be able to see the entire game and what it has to offer by accomplishing that major goal, and as a result, leaves some without a sense of fulfillment and thus an inability to enjoy the playing experience as much as they could be. Just as fulfilling as it is to become the champion of a region, it is equally satisfying to see a trainer manage to capture a legendary Pokemon for their collection, something that has been a pivotal part of the series and a staple for version mascots as early as Generation 2. This is something that is again fundamentally tied to the single-player experience of these games, as while some minor legendaries are known to exist in multiples across the planet, there are many, such as the major mascots of most of the games, that are supposed to be the only ones of their kind, completely unique to the world they are a part of. This makes the chance to capture them extremely significant then, as it means that you, a lone trainer, are challenging a creature of truly legendary proportions, a deity of some sort with incredibly destructive and potentially untold power. This makes the individual challenge of fighting and capturing these creatures that much more important to the story, especially since nowadays the main campaign and story of the games are linked to these legendary creatures in some way or another. The problem with this, if we try to transition to an MMO format, is that this would mean that, to copy the spirit of the same experience, there really could only be one of these particular legendaries, and if someone else got it before you, well, you'd be completely out of luck. Now, it could be said that we could just make more of these creatures for capture, but I think that would ultimately only serve to cheapen the experience and make it less impactful to others, taking away the majesty and grandeur often associated with these legendary Pokemon in the lore of the games. Moving aside from the experience, there is then money to consider. I have an issue in this topic on a number of levels. First of all, the one thing about MMOs that makes them possible is a paid subscription or some sort of microtransactions. I don't know about you, but both of those things make me leery. I'm very much used to just buying a game and being able to enjoy it for the rest of my life without having to pay further costs for it. And then of course there is in-game costs to consider. If MMO games operate under a set price list of items like Pokemon, then it's not a problem. But in some, there is an actual market to consider, and if that's the case, all of a sudden, the games become complicated in a way that is not likely to be friendly to novice trainers, or anyone for that matter. Having a fluctuating market means that the basic established prices for items would have to change, and seeing as that really hasn't happened for most of the series, that could potentially be a poor choice to make. With so much RNG in the series mechanics as it is, having something like item prices being fixed is a helpful benefit and allows players to gauge their funds and make appropriate plans for them, while an active economy might make things more difficult, especially for players that are just starting out. And in talking about the problems with an open market, we can say that this is an equally bad idea when it comes to rare items. So, in some MMOs, there are online auction houses where players can find and purchase incredibly rare items if they wish to, instead of just grinding or searching for them on their own. In the Pokemon world, such rare items do exist, and while this point is by far not inclusive to all types of MMOs, an auction house of that sort would likely be quite unfair to many players, especially since the bidding wars that take place in such establishments can cause some items to go for absolutely ridiculous prices, sometimes far more than they are actually worth. Again, this is a level of real-world RNG that I don't think Game Freak would find to be very conducive to a fun time in their games, so that option is definitely off the table. And lastly, there is probably one aspect of the Pokemon games as a whole that really, truly makes them unfit for the kind of MMO platform we are used to seeing, and that is something that lies not in the games themselves, but in the way that they are played: their timelessness. What I mean by this is that, no matter how old a game is, you can pick it up, play it, and the experience you get at the physical level of the game itself will likely be the same as it always has been, because the games can't be easily altered or changed by time alone. But with MMOs, for the most part, this is never true, as there are always updates coming in, new content being added, new experiences that can be searched for. The games never stay the same. This is by far not a bad thing, of course, because this is what allows these games to evolve and thrive over time, bringing in new players while continuing to give experienced players more reasons to continue playing the game. In their own way, the Pokemon games do the same thing with successive installments, but the key difference is that each and every game is a new adventure. Sure, you might be a person that has played several games in the series, but when you pick up a new game, it's not you and your old team fighting through a new land. You are getting the chance to start afresh, and you can do so without losing the progress you have already made, since your old Pokemon are still on a different game. But more importantly, you can go back to those old games and relive the experience of that adventure over and over again as much as you would like. You can go back to a simpler time and let nostalgia overtake you. And nostalgia is indeed a powerful force. Take that from a Generation 1 veteran of the series. Nostalgia, as it is utilized and remixed with every installment, allows for players to relive their past experiences over and over again as many times as they want, and to use that to keep their memories of those games and those times alive. So, in their own way, the games are like time capsules that can be reopened at any time, and thus help to keep the series current by allowing you to look to the past at any time, and once again, take in the same breath of fresh air you took when you first started out on your journey so long ago, while at the same time providing the developers useful context when designing future installments. With many MMOs, this can't happen most of the time, so they lose out on the nostalgia market, and in turn a large portion of the players that would still rather play with things how they used to be in the past. So, with all of that said, I will end this analysis by stating that, despite what you might think from what you have heard, I am actually not inherently against the idea of a Pokemon MMO. However, I don't think that it would work the way that MMOs as we know them ever could. There are so many ways in which an MMO for the series would change everything, and while Game Freak likes to mix things up, I feel that these changes would alter some of the very core features and intentions behind the series, and thus would make a compatible creation hard to make. As it stands right now, the future is open, but again, I don't think that the series will likely ever see itself on something like a traditional MMO platform. And if it does, it will certainly have to be something very unique and special for it to work as many might hope it would. Well, that's all for this episode, so stay tuned and prepare yourselves in time for the next episode of the V.T.P. Thank you all for watching this video. It is always an honor to be able to speak with you all on the subject of Pokemon in a way that brings me great joy and happiness in my work. If you would like to keep tabs on past and future work, click that subscribe button, check out my work on DeviantArt, and don't be shy about following me on Twitter, where you can find pertinent announcements on upcoming work before it is officially posted. Links to both can be found in the video description. If you would like to support my work and help Miguel and I continue to produce more content for you and improve upon our presentation, please visit us at my Patreon page, which you can also find a link to in the video description.
Yeah, no.
With that, I thank you for watching and I wish you well.